All right, are we ready to turn over to the last program of the day? Jojo, there, everybody's there?
Yes, we're here.
Okay. I see a myriad of folks on the screen, so it's hard for me to pick you out. So we're going to turn over to the last program of the day. Like I said, good afternoon, folks from Wyoming, I guess. We have heard a lot today about the value of work. We've heard about how to break down barriers to working. So, you know, how to address employment discrimination. Cheryl has just spent time debunking some common Social Security myths that make people fear working. And we heard a lot about state initiatives that are making employment a reality here in Alabama for more people with disabilities. But we are going to close out today with an employment success story. We're going to have a discussion with the folks associated with Vertical Harvest, the business that you saw profiled in the movie Hearts of Glass. So we're joined this evening by Lucas Fries, Jojo Denmark, and Jen Tennican. And I am going to turn the mic over to our guests so that they can introduce themselves. And then we're going to get started with questions that you have for them about the movie. So our folks in Wyoming, how about if we start with you, Jen? Why don't you introduce yourself and then we'll go down the roster.
Okay, thank you, Nancy. My name is Jennifer Tennican. I'm the director and producer of the documentary film Hearts of Glass. I hope you all have had a chance to watch it. If you haven't been able to finish it, I know there's a streaming period that will, I think, go on for a couple of days. I started doing documentary film when I was living in Boston over 20 years ago, and began doing Nova shows, so science shows for the public television station in Boston, and moved to Wyoming in 2002. I've focused on telling community stories since then. I've done a film about a local bar. I've done a film about a local conservation icon, and this film is about an innovative greenhouse with an inclusive employment model. And it's just great to include people with disabilities in the stories about our community. They exist, they're a natural part of our community, and it's been great to share the story around the country. And that's about all you need to know for me at the moment, I think.
All right, how about if we move on to Jojo?
I think Lucas wanted to go first, if that's okay.
Oh, that's perfectly fine. However you want to roll.
Awesome.
All right. Thank you, Nancy and Jen. Hi, everyone. I'm Lucas, and I grew up in Jackson Hole. I started working for Vertical Harvest in October. And I knew this was a great fit for me when I started here. I appreciate the people and the atmosphere at work. And VH also, Vertical Harvest aligns with my passions. So that's really nice to be able to work alongside those every day. And in my off time, I enjoy reading, writing, and the nature of Wyoming also.
I think that's all for Lucas.
Yes.
Okay, Jojo, do you want to wrap it up then? The introduction's up.
Sure. So I'm the packaging and fulfillment manager. I work directly with Lucas on a daily basis. I'm originally from Idaho. I spent a decent amount of time in Jackson since 2016. What really brought me here, though, was I had an internship at the Integrated Solid Waste and Recycling Center, which is a fancy name for just our recycling center around town. Once I finished that, I stuck around in town where I served and bartended, but that wasn't as fulfilling as what I would have hoped it would have been. So then in order to find a career that more aligned with my sustainability background, I joined Vertical Harvest in June of 2022. I really fell in love with the culture of Vertical Harvest and the people who support it. I'm so grateful to be a part of the team now, and I consider them family. So I'm really excited to see how the business grows and replicates. And in addition to that, I love playing outside with my best friend, Archie, the border collie, who's my dog.
That's great. All right, let's open up the panel to discussion with our partners, panelists. Who has a question for these three folks? Anybody want to break the ice? Well, I will break the ice then. I'm really good at cocktail parties in that regard. So Lucas, you talked about how you thought that Vertical Harvest was a great fit for you and that it aligns with your passions. Can you tell us a little bit more about that and why you like being there?
I like being there because I think that all of the people there every day try their best to be inclusive and to be thoughtful. It's important to me that people in this community that are underserved have an opportunity to serve themselves, and hopefully, in my experience, I've just haven't fit in a lot of workplaces, and so to be able to find a workplace where everyone is just super encouraged to be themselves is really great.
So had you had some experiences before where you didn't feel like you fit in and you were well supported?
Yeah, I think most work experiences I've had in my life have felt that way.
Really? Wow. So this was a great change for you.
Huge change, different. Yeah, kind of scary to accept help and feel like it's okay also.
In what way was it a little bit scary at first?
Just to trust people, not to think that any of the accommodations that I think of are silly or that they're worth laughing at.
Oh, okay. What were some of the accommodations that you use while you're working?
Headphones, frequent breaks.
Okay.
Sunglasses.
Are the headphones to keep the noise down?
Yes.
Gotcha. All right.
It's a very noisy and bright place.
Yes.
You could tell that in the movie with all the sun shining through and all the LED lights and yeah.
It's beautiful, but if you do have a sensitivity to light, it can be a little bit tough. But
Yeah.
Lucas we've all worked together and we've found a solution that makes him feel as comfortable as possible.
And so I guess you go through that process with all the employees with whom you work.
Exactly. Yeah. I would say all of our employees, we just have such a unique model, but all of our employees have certain accommodations within the greenhouse. Because everybody's different, everybody's unique.
Alex, I can't see the things that pop up on the screen, I'm afraid. I don't know whether it was a comment or a question. Oh, that helps. Okay. Yeah, and so about expanding it, I don't know who's best to answer this question, but let me just say that when I sat down to watch the movie, I thought I was going to do it at home one night, but actually what I ended up doing was I went into our conference room at our office and I told everyone in the office, I'm watching this movie and this is the movie and this is why I'm watching it. And I was joined by a bunch of other ADAP staff, and we sat and watched the movie together. And one of my colleagues said that he Googled it, and he thought he understood that Vertical Harvest has actually grown so that it's now in more than one location. Your location in Wyoming is just one of them. Was that right? Is it expanding?
Yeah, so we're also opening one in Westbrook, Maine. The hope is this fall. However, as everybody knows, construction can take a little longer, especially when you have such a unique idea and building. So it is very much underway, very much happening. But yeah, it's really exciting stuff. Our vision is to have a network of farms throughout the United States, as opposed to one singular farm that distributes throughout the United States. So we're unique in that aspect, where we want to go around, find these communities that have underserved demographics and help them as best we can.
Okay.
So I think just to add, they have a very ambitious plan of replicating 15 within the next 5 years.
15 sites throughout the United States.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah, and they're mostly geared towards urban areas. I mean, most people, when they think of Jackson, Jackson, Wyoming, think of very rural. But Jackson has a lot more in common with Manhattan or downtown Chicago in terms of land values and the lack of available land. So I know we go through things very quickly in the film, but it is a public-private partnership with the town of Jackson. It would have been cost prohibitive to buy land and develop it. So there were public funds involved in the initial project. And you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, but now as they're replicating, I think they're seeing the facility in Jackson as more of a place where they can experiment on things, because they've learned, obviously, economies of scale. The farm in Maine will be, how many square feet do you guys know? It's something like,
I don't remember.
it's like 4 times the size or 5 times the size of the one in Jackson. Yeah, I think something like that.
Yeah, that is correct.
So one of the gentlemen that's in the room today talked about when going in to interview for a job, maybe asking for, and Brian, I'm looking at you out of my side eye, talking about asking for an interview accommodation so that the structure of the interview isn't, the traditional formal, here's your resume and the interviewer is here and you're there. And anyway, just thinking about how you might be able to interview differently. And I'm wondering, Lucas, from your perspective as the employee being interviewed, or as the hopeful employee being interviewed, how was that interview experience for you?
Do you mean the one at Vertical Harvest or overall?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. When you interviewed at Vertical Harvest, how did it feel interviewing? Did the interview process work for you? Did you feel comfortable? Were there any awkward moments? How did it feel to be interviewed for a job there?
I didn't disclose anything right away. So the interview, I think, went pretty normal as far as interviews go. And so, in my opinion, it felt awkward, like usual.
Like any job interview does. It can be kind of artificial.
Yes.
We did know a little bit about Lucas's background. For some context, I know Lucas's sister outside of Vertical Harvest, and she was the one who brought to attention that Lucas was looking for a job. So I then reached out to him. So there was a little bit of familiarity there. Wow.
Yes, it was nice to text to start.
Yeah.
So Jojo, for you on the other side of the interview table, as the person who's doing the hiring or on a team of people who are doing the hiring. How do you prep for it? How do you think about it differently, given the inclusive employment opportunities that you want to foster?
Yeah, I think that one of the most important things to introduce to anyone who's interviewing in the greenhouse is how kind of chaotic it can be sometimes. So how bright, how loud, how busy it can be. So we do try and start out with a tour for everyone when they come in. And even if it's not their first, even if it's their first time coming into the greenhouse and it's not an official interview, we will just give them a tour and be like, is this something that you would be interested in, after seeing kind of a brief rundown of the day to day in the greenhouse. And then if they are interested, we typically sit down with them and just get to know who they are as a person. Kind of we don't want to dive too deep into it. So kind of just a surface level, like, who are you? How did you come to us at Vertical Harvest? What interests you about it here? And that sort of thing. So we do have some questions that are like your generic awkward interview questions, but we do very much try and have people get a feel for what it would be to work at Vertical Harvest. Oh, Nancy, I just lost I can't hear you.
Paige Perry, do you have a question?
Yes. Can y'all hear me okay?
Yes.
Hey, it's Paige Perry. So I had kind of a comment and a question listening to Lucas and even Nancy talk right now. Y'all were talking about kind of how you can modify an interview, and it had me thinking, like, should HR in general, not just for folks that might have disabilities, like reevaluate how they onboard and orient folks to jobs? And like the sunglasses thing, I think if I were working with y'all, I would want to wear the sunglasses too. Like, and so maybe like having routine check-ins, like 2 weeks on the job, 3 months, 6 months, etc. Like, what do you need to do your job better? Because that benefits us as a company and an organization. And I think that should be for all employees. I mean, retention is such a problem at a lot of companies now. Anyway, it's just kind of like a change in my thinking about how we could better orient new folks to our groups and to our teams. And then I had a question. So I've always been pro the business or like the fiscal reasons for employing and integrating people with disabilities. And I think your movie does an outstanding job of really highlighting that it's not like some lovey-dovey, we're helping poor people with disabilities, but it's, there's really a fiscal cause. And so I wanted to know, like, do the people that view the movie, do y'all get that feedback that they're surprised by that? Or kind of like what shocks, your average viewer about what they've seen in the movie?
Well, I think a lot of people who watch the film for the first time and may not come from the disability space are just surprised that people with significant disabilities can contribute and work. There's quite a diverse range of people who work at Vertical Harvest. So that's a big one. And it's kind of, I guess, uplifting in one way and depressing in another way that's what their metric is, or that they haven't been exposed to that. I think one of the things that I like in the film is that we showed what supported employment looks like, and sort of good examples of it, where it's the job supports person to work themselves out of a job, not do the job for the person they're supporting, so they can master new skills. And I also love the job interviews where people are actually getting, I mean, we filmed a lot of job interviews and not everything made it in the film, but I think, we're actually getting quality feedback. And you are frequently given the opportunity to diversify your skill set or try something new, the dignity to try something new, and maybe it's not for you, and to fail and to go back to something you love. These are all things that apply to, human resources and people working in companies in general. But I think Vertical Harvest intentionality around inclusion is something that's worth replicating for sure. And we probably need more people with disabilities in HR positions as well.
We have a few more questions here. Jennifer Rucker would like to ask your question, then we'll go to chat. Kim Spangler and then Angie Richardson. Mrs. Rucker.
Thank you. This is Jennifer Rucker, and I want to thank Eugene for producing such a movie that educates so many people and using the term of the underserved population rather than specifically a person with a disability. I have a couple of questions. I noticed that there were several paid job coaches interviewed, but then when I listened to JoJo now, it sounds like there's a good transition between perhaps a job coach that comes on in the beginning, but then are more natural supports from the employees of Vertical Harvest in place now. And were the employees of Vertical Harvest trained on natural supports, or did this just happen because it just happened?
Do you guys want to take that, JoJo, Lucas, or do you want me to start?
Yeah, I'm happy to answer that. So just to clarify, you're kind of asking about the job coaches within Vertical Harvest and just the natural support that managers and other coworkers give, correct?
Right, because I was very impressed watching the movie. I thought, oh my gosh, look at the ratio of job coaches to the number of employees.
Yeah.
And I wondered, do those job coaches that are from some department within the state of Wyoming, do they gradually disappear? Because it seemed like the employees of Vertical Harvest offered more natural supports to their co-workers.
Yeah.
A good blend, is that what happened? And that's like the most perfect
Mhm.
thing that could happen for a person, you know, with a disability, to be more supported by his peers than by a paid staff person that they don't know or see maybe once every 90 days.
Yeah, exactly. And so within Vertical Harvest, the job supports that we do have are the same job supports for a few individuals. So you will see their face pretty often if they are working with an individual. However, it is the goal to have them not work anymore in the greenhouse. For example, we've had quite a few people in the greenhouse who have had job supports who no longer need job supports at all. They very much lean on their coworkers, their managers to help support them in that sense. However, we do have other individuals who maybe do 50-50 where they'll have job supports on 2 days and then they'll be independent the other 2 days. And then, for example, we have Marcus, who he has his job support Iris 2 days. And then the other 2 days, we're really working on him holding himself accountable and staying on task. And he's been doing such a good job at that. Sometimes he needs those reminders, as we all do, but it's so amazing to see. And that really is the goal, to have everyone just kind of naturally transition to being a part of the family and really just not needing their job supports, which we have very much seen.
Well, JoJo, did y'all receive training from persons in the field, in vocational rehab or whatever, on job support, or y'all it just comes natural to you to teach your peers?
Yeah, I personally did not receive any training. I have personal experience working with children with disabilities throughout college. And so I kind of just had prior knowledge around that. We do have individuals who do have training. Yeah, it kind of just depends. Some people are just naturally really caring, and we have so many people in the greenhouse who are that way.
Well, it's fabulous. And then about replicating the business, do you lend copies of your business plan to people, to organizations who might be interested?
That I don't know. That would be more of our co-founder, a question for our co-founders. I'm not sure. I don't think that we hold anything back if anyone asks us about it. If you get Caroline talking, she will talk your ear off about how amazing Vertical Harvest is and how proud she is of our business model. So I don't think that it's a secret, unless you ask Lucas, and then he won't tell you.
Thank you.
Of course.
For the next question, we're going to go to chat. Kim Spangler's question is going to be spoke by Brooke.
Kim is a previous PIPA graduate, and she wants to know if any of the restaurant owners in the area have duplicated or embraced the public-private partnership with their own businesses to become more inclusive employers.
Yeah, I want to hear about that too.
As far as I know, I mean, you might know, I feel like you've been around in Jackson longer than I have. Do you know of any restaurants in this town that have?
I don't think so. No.
So I'm just to clarify, I mean, I don't think that people need to do public-private partnerships in order to be more inclusive. So I don't think it's kind of an either or. As far as I know, all the businesses that you work with are for-profit businesses. I mean, you do, I think, donate some produce to some nonprofits who distribute it, right?
Yeah.
So I think one of the benefits, so Vertical Harvest is a for-profit business, and I think having it be such a new and visible business in the community made other employers aware of the benefits of a diverse workforce. So I think the goal is to not take the onus off of existing businesses to be more inclusive. But, everybody was like, okay, let's start something new and we can make it like this. But, I mean, this is also about addressing existing businesses and moving towards inclusion in that intentional, intentional move that's, I think, it can be led from the side in, the bottom up or whatever, but I think it is most effective when the leadership is really behind it 100%. And yes, so I don't think any of the restaurant businesses in Jackson have embraced the public-private partnership, but I don't think they need to be inclusive.
Angie Richardson.
I have a couple of questions. And the first one is kind of piggybacking off that one. With regard to the plan to replicate, where are you in deciding where you're going to do that in regard to the southern states?
That's a really good question. I don't know about the southern states. We do have an expansion manager that I'm sure would be able to answer that question in a heartbeat. But as far as the southern states, I do know that when I kind of inquired, this was a little while ago, about where the future farms would be, it was more so like on the eastern southern side of the United States. However, I cannot tell you, I wish that I had that answer for you, but I'm not entirely sure.
That's okay. So I mean, Alabama is considered a southeastern state, so we could qualify. So and
Well,
so my second question is, how did you all, because I noticed in the film that there were opportunities for growth and that employees were promoted. So how did you create that within Vertical Harvest? Because all of the employees, they weren't kept strictly at an entry level positions, so to speak. They were given the opportunity to move up. And I guess, if I remember correctly, they reevaluated them within a year. So is that process, do they have to wait a year, or can that process be sooner based on their performance?
Yeah, so we try and do 6 months at a time now. A year is just a little too long to wait. However, if there are circumstances where maybe someone leaves the company and there's an opportunity for someone else to move up, that is a different circumstance where we won't wait for that 6 months to happen. We will implement that change as soon as we can. But yeah, we have across the board, so many different people in different positions, people with disabilities, people without disabilities, in these senior manager positions. And since Vertical Harvest is such a dynamic workplace, everyone's position is kind of catered to how they succeed, how they grow, how they learn, that sort of thing. But again, since we are a for-profit company, we do look at that aspect, and we have made it work so well. And yeah, sometimes I don't know how, but it's just amazing how cohesive that is when you wouldn't think it would be sometimes, but it really is.
Okay, thank you.
Lucas, have you had a job review yet? Have you had your 6-month review? I forgot when you started.
I filled out the review that, like a self-review.
Mhm.
Yeah, we did a self-review. So at the beginning of the year, everyone in the company did a self-review. Lucas has been with the company since October. So we'll do a 6-month review when that time comes. But yeah, we did a self-review this week, actually.
Was that helpful?
I don't find do self-reviews particularly helpful.
And Niles, do you have a question?
Yes, I for Jojo and Lucas, I just want to know like the expansion manager, like all the contact info for them, because I think this is something that can very much work with an event that I have coming up on the 6th. We can just work that into the plan,
I
into the
love
business
this.
plan.
So I'll make sure to put that in the chat by the end of this session. Does that sound okay? Because I have to look it up for you, but
Yeah, especially if we're in the Southeast and I think we qualify. We really
Okay,
do.
so just to be clear, I don't think there's any specific geographic regions that qualify or don't qualify. I think we're just using the wrong terminology there. A lot comes together, I think, in terms of where Vertical Harvest is looking to replicate. They have to have the right partners. There's a lot of community building. Yeah, those kind of things. So I think everything is potentially, on the table, and there's a way that you can tap into find out what's going on with replication efforts and get more information. And I'm sure Jojo can provide some of that information. And there's also going to be a slide at the end that has contact information, just general website and stuff, where you can also get more information on that, Niles.
Awesome.
Thanks, Jen.
Thank you.
So Jen, I have a question for you. I don't know what your experience was with inclusive employment before you started the film. So what was that experience, and has it changed over the course of your work with Vertical Harvest?
So I would say, I don't even know that I knew the term inclusive employment, and certainly not competitive integrated employment or anything else. I obviously came from a background as an independent filmmaker doing community stories. I found it fascinating, I think, how many sort of cutting edge things were going on with Vertical Harvest. First of all, Jackson Hole is a small community, Jackson Hole, 10,000 people. I knew 2 of the 3 co-founders, just as friends. So that was a woman who had a background in sustainable food production, and then Nona, who's the architect. And, just sort of seeing their passion about developing this project, which took about 8 years to bring it to the point where we start the story. So a tremendous amount of work went into it. So I knew I didn't have much exposure to the disability community or knowledge about it. So I reached out to UCEDS, University Centers of Excellence in Developmental Disabilities in Wyoming and Montana in particular, to, get a sense of best practices. We'd never done a lot of interviews with people with disabilities, and and I wanted to get to know family members. Sometimes we needed permission to film, and the employees might have a I'm talking about, I've lost the word, but they didn't have permission. Yes, right. So their legal guardian had to sign it, and we wanted people to be comfortable with that, and so it was good to spend time thinking about that. So in terms of competitive or inclusive employment, no, I hadn't done any thinking about it, and now I really can't stop thinking about it. It's one of those things, like once you know. So accessibility, inclusivity, not judging people in the very shallow way. As humans, we tend to judge people. Do they talk? Do they speak like me? Do they communicate like me? Do they look like me? and valuing people on quote unquote intelligence and how we define intelligence. It's been pretty eye-opening.
Do you find yourself looking when you go into a store or you're in a business, you know, do you find yourself wondering, does this place provide opportunities for competitive integrated employment?
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, sometimes when when I'm traveling and you go into a grocery store and you see someone who's an older person with a disability, who's been, you know, who's a grocery bagger, you just wonder, like, do they want to be doing more? Are there the opportunities for them? Yeah, and I think that's true. Like when you're in everyday businesses, it also just forced me to think about, if I'm telling community stories, why is this the first time where I'm really seeing members of my communities with disabilities? So what kind of social structures are kind of keeping us separate, even in a small community?
Jess, do you have a question?
Yes, I do. If y'all are good with that. I'm Jess. So I have a question for Lucas. I was really just thinking back to what you said about how each of us all have our own different needs and different accommodations, and especially the interview process. And on the flip side for me, just some of the things I've had myself as well. What do you think needs to happen in terms of removing barriers in order to actually truly be able to create an interview process that is actually accommodating without being penalized? Does that make sense what I'm asking?
Yes, I don't know if I have the answer.
Okay, I know I'm a big thinker, so.
I'll turn it back on you, Jess. What do you think has to happen?
Of course, you're gonna turn it back on me.
Well, it's the danger. You asked the question, you must have a thought about it.
Case law. It will take case law and probably some federal changes with ADA, probably Title I and Section 504 as well for certain things. That's my answer. Because there's still a lot of exemptions with business. When I look at business practice, a lot of business have a lot of loopholes that they can get out of and not enough accountability. So that's my thought process.
I think from a non-litigious standpoint, you know, I think if we do get more people with disabilities in HR positions where they're thinking openly and creatively about that, and they're working with their non-disabled peers, you know, I think they can, you know, come up with creative accommodations where people don't, you know, feel they're being judged for asking for an accommodation. The other thing that I think happens a lot is people will make accommodations once people have gotten through the initial interviews. Like the accommodations typically don't happen until later. And I think we need to put pressure on people to be a little bit more proactive from the get-go. You know, like, how are you advertising this? How can people submit their, you know, and I attended a great event where a number of speakers with disabilities were talking about how they're in interview situations, like the likelihood that a person with a disability will oversell their skill set, you know, is low. And then if you get any kind of intersectionality around race and gender and whatever, I mean, it just goes down. So you have to have people in place who are making decisions about who to hire, who know those kind of things, because as we all know, you know, people without disabilities will BS their way through. I mean, they know how to BS their way through an interview, or a lot of them do. And I think you just have to be aware of that.
Yeah, and I agree. It's very much of a, for some of us, we have to fake it till we make it. Mm-hmm. And also there's that whole aspect of, I agree that there needs to be more people with disabilities in certain positions, both in the political realm and the business world, both, because that's how change is going to happen. But it's the question of how do we get us into those positions to begin with for that change then to come in. Right. That makes sense. Yeah. For example, so I'm deaf. And so in the deafness world, a lot of my friends are signing only, and they have much more barriers than I do, because as you see right now, I'm oral and I can hear medical devices that I have, which allows me to go to an interview and not have to disclose that I'm deaf. But for my friends who their language is ASL, we're dealing with a different barrier as well. So I understand there's a bit more cultural implications there, but then I just have to think about my other friends who have other, not just one disability, but they may be nonverbal and also use sign language. They have to have interpreters. So it's just an interesting thought process to think about.
Yeah, and I think, you're right. You definitely, I mean, there have to be federal and state regulations in place to make people, I mean, as much as we want people to do the right thing, I think again and again, we're shown that that's not really going to happen without some impetus.
We have a question from chat. Kim Spangler says, the family member in the movie who quoted, "You fear what you don't know. To fix that, you have to have the experience. This happens through experience with inclusive and integrated environments." That's a great quote to promote more and better natural supports in our communities. Can you advise on your experiences with grassroots advocacy to this end? Things to do/say, not to do, or not to say?
Who is that question directed to?
We'll start off with JoJo and Lucas.
You want to go?
I think you can take this one.
Yeah, so as far as grassroots advocacy goes, I feel like I can't 100% speak on that end. I can speak about my personal experience about what I've learned not to say and what to say. For example, the biggest thing for me joining Vertical Harvest was people at Vertical Harvest, we took a poll to see if people like to be referred to as someone with a disability or someone with a differing ability. And it was a 50-50 split there. So that was kind of like, I think my whole life I was taught to say, oh, like a person with a differing ability or neurodiverse or that sort of thing, which I'm not discounting those sayings by any means, but I learned that people at Vertical Harvest who have disabilities really like to be recognized that they have a disability because they are able to live their lives and do everything that able-bodied people are as well. And they own a disability as like, this is who I am, and I'm very proud of it. So that's been something that I have learned personally since I've joined Vertical Harvest. I hope that helps answer the question there. Yeah.
I mean, I can think of a lot of things not to say, probably.
Well, Lucas, let me ask this. What does it mean to you to be a self-advocate?
Asking for what I need, which is, I think, different than what I want or what other people want. And it's being okay with like knowing that my needs, it's okay to have needs which are different, and that they can be accepted in a workplace in the same space as someone with the opposite kind of need.
Do you feel like in your time at Vertical Harvest, you've become a better self-advocate?
Yes, definitely. I think JoJo and I work on it all the time.
We do. Communication here is very important. And
So is that something that's built into kind of the employee, I don't know what you'd call it, dynamic, just advancing self-advocacy?
Yeah, we started off with saying, okay, once a week or twice a week, we're going to make sure that we sit down and talk about what's going on at the workplace. And sometimes that translates to maybe saying something every day to JoJo about something that's going on. Like if something's too loud or I need to step out for a minute. Being able to say those things without the fear of JoJo saying anything or judging my work effort is nice.
Chantel, do you have a question?
Yeah. Hi, this is Chantel. What would it cost to bring this to Alabama? And was this program funded at all by the state of Wyoming?
Yes. Yeah, go ahead, Jen. I mean, if you want to speak on this.
I just know a little bit about the funding history. Maybe you do too.
I know about current funding status.
Okay, I'll go back to the original and then you can come with the new stuff. Since I've been technically, like, I'm grandfathered in the firm. So it's a public-private partnership. There were public funds involved. There was a $1.5 million matching grant from the Wyoming Business Council. That was a very close vote. They were one vote away from not getting it. And that really helped them turn the corner, I think, on the funding. And it had been not necessarily piecemeal, but there had been a lot of different funding models before. They'd done a Kickstarter campaign, they'd, done other crowdfunding, they'd had funders and all sorts of stuff, private donors, and I think going forward is where JoJo can jump in and tell you how they're doing funding. So I think it's very hard to give you a particular number, Chantel. And it also there have to be the right partners involved. And there's this incubation period where they have to find out, is it the right place? Is there a good location? Who are the partners? All of that kind of stuff.
Hey, this is Linda. I do have some more conversation about that. The Jane Elizabeth Burdishaw, who spoke earlier, when I shared her the agenda and she saw the Hearts of Glass was on for later today, she said, "Oh, I saw that a year or so ago." And I've been trying to talk to people around the state to bring it to Alabama. So she's already started the conversation. And then I talked with Brian Geiger and he was talking to somebody else. So, let's continue the conversation and see if we can develop some partnerships and bring it.
If we raise the money that was needed, would you come and help us get it started? Because I believe if you want something bad enough, you can make it happen.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that, so for example, the greenhouse that we're building in Westbrook, Maine it's underway. So it's being built. We are still looking for funding for that, even though it's in this process. So we're constantly looking for funding. My understanding, and I don't want to be held accountable for this because I really I'm not a numbers person at all. But my understanding is that like the funding for each greenhouse will kind of be particular to where it is. So that's something to consider. And I'm not really sure. It would have to be kind of just assessed by headquarters on where that funding would come from for Alabama. But I love how y'all you want this in Alabama. Like, it's amazing. It's such a good feeling to.
I know the money's there. I mean, we've got old money and we've got new money coming into this area. It's just hitting them up for the donations and getting them on board, which that can happen. It just depends on how bad you want it. So I want to know, can you come out? If we raise that money, could you get us set up?
Yeah, well, it sounds like the conversation is already going, which is, it's a start, which is so amazing. So I think if we just continue that conversation, there will hopefully be something that comes out of it, and hopefully a greenhouse in Alabama.
Thank you so much. I loved your guys' movie. It was great.
I dropped a URL in the chat. And so if you go to that, This is on the Vertical Harvest website. And just to be completely clear, I'm not the greenhouse, but I am dropping it in. There's a category called partnership opportunities. Contact us about partnership opportunities, schedule a call. So that is where you guys should go, I think. Very exciting.
I would like to build on what Chantel said, is that I also believe that in addition to old money, we also get the right connections involved, because there's more than just, the green pieces of paper is not the only form of capital we have here. We also have connections. We also have people who are willing to support this through either a little bit different, cheaper labor, cheaper labor, more reliable labor to get us started, because we need to be all inclusive here.
For all the participants to know that JoJo and Lucas do have to go back to work here in a little bit. So please get your questions in while you can.
Yeah, so I'm not sure who best can answer this, but I thought at one point in the movie, there was a reference being made to the fact that during maybe busy times of the year that you hire college students to come in. Was that correct?
Not since I've been there. I think
Thank
that that was more of a beginning situation. However, we do have a high school student that's about to come in and help with tray washing as part of their community service for their school.
Nancy, I think what you saw, there was a tour where some students from the University of Wyoming were visiting. They were doing a report on sustainability and stuff, and they just happened to be in there. And there was another comment about unreliable labor from like college students who come to Jackson to ski and, have hangovers and don't show up on powder days. So those were the two kind of college student comments. I'm not sure which one it was, but.
Okay, well, living in Tuscaloosa, I don't know anything about college students that don't have good work ethics. So, Jen, I have a question for you. You've said that you focus on making community films. What is it that you hope for is the lasting impact of this film that you've made?
I think there's nothing better than to feel like you've shown people something in their own community that they weren't aware of, or given them a window into someone's life where they can actually empathize and understand what other folks are going through. And I think while the challenges of inclusion inside and outside of the workplace might be complicated in some ways. So, getting the right training, having high expectations for oneself, parental expectations, employers who are willing and excited about inclusive employment, all of those things. It just lets people know that disability is part of being human, and this is who can, everybody counts as community.
And as Caroline, one of the co-founders of Vertical Harvest, puts it, any of us could be a part of that community at any point in our lives. Like, anyone could become disabled, so it's just always something to consider.
Yeah. So Lucas, I asked Jen about her hopes for the impact of the film. Let me ask you about your hopes for next steps in your work career.
Next steps, I think, are continuing to advocate for myself and to find ways in which to do so. And I think next steps, hopefully, I would like to not have such a physically demanding job. I've had a lot of physically demanding jobs. And next step is to hopefully not have to do as much labor as I had done.
I hear you. Okay. I hope your hopes come true. I think you have a good partner there in JoJo to help you work on that.
Yes.
Yeah. Any other questions from our partners group?
Now, as mentioned, there's going to be contact information in the chat and as well as the slides. So last chance here. Ask Jojo, ask Lucas, ask Jennifer these questions, you know, and get on getting one in here in Alabama.
Well, then I think what we're going to do is we're going to let let Lucas and his job hopes be the last word for the night. Linda, is there anything you want to say about prepping for tomorrow?
I just want to remind everyone that we had a schedule change for tomorrow and we will resume at 10 a.m. tomorrow. Not 9, 10 a.m. Okay. And now Jojo and Lucas can say goodbye.
Back to work.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
We'll leave these slides up just for a few minutes here. So if you guys are on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Vertical Harvest Farms, go ahead and type that in your phone right now. I always find out the easiest way for me to start off is go to Instagram, look up the account, follow it, and then I can connect with the other socials from there. So make sure you're writing that down. And we also have Hearts of Glass Film, both on Facebook and Instagram. So you're on Instagram already, go ahead and type that in, click a follow. And then I'm sure there are the other links to the other socials on that account as well. Hearts of Glass Film, heartsofglassfilm.com.
Thanks for letting us be part of your conference. We really enjoyed it.
We appreciate everything that you guys are doing, who you are, and spending time with us and teaching us, you know, what you guys are doing.
Sounds like Vertical Harvest is going to get some schedule a call emails pretty soon.
I think so.
Okay.
We'll go ahead and wrap up at this point. And everyone, if you want to give Jennifer a wave and say thanks again.
Oh, wait, don't give me a wave yet. Let me film it. I'm a filmer. Wave.
Okay, yeah, here we
Now wave.
There we go.
Come back on screen. Yay. All right. Thanks, guys.
All right. See you.
All right, bye.